Have you ever heard of a chicken list? I had not until over a decade ago. I started in my first network marketing company and they encouraged me to create one. And you don't have to be in network marketing to create a chicken list because basically it's a list of people that you hold in such high regard for whatever reason that it physically makes you nervous and maybe you're a little fearful or intimidated to actually approach them and ask them whatever it is that you would want to ask them. Friends, let me tell you something. If you are not brave enough to ask the question, you know what's going to happen? A big fat nothing, because you didn't ask. But if you muscle up your bravery, if you put on your big girl panties and just ask the question, you might get a direct message back that says, "Why, yes, Jan, I would love to be on your podcast." And that's exactly what happened with this beautiful woman that I got to interview and I'm sharing with you today. Her name is Beth McCord, and she is an Enneagram expert. Y'all know I love me some Enneagram. She is an accomplished Enneagram speaker, author, coach, and teacher with literally over 2 decades of dedicated experience. Her passion really lies in helping individuals rewrite their life stories, empowering them to realize that lasting change and really meaningful relationships are possible. Beth's mission led to the creation of the Your Enneagram Coach community, which is how I found her and her husband over on Instagram. It really is a nurturing space where individuals like you and me can safely explore the Enneagram and all that encompasses in our lives. So, y'all get ready. There is so much goodness coming at you. Let's go. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So, let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith walk every single day in the marketplace. I've felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of a few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. I am so excited for my guest today because she is going to speak to something that has become very dear to my heart. It has really spoken to me and opened up the world of understanding who I am and how I work, and that is the Enneagram. If you have listened to this podcast before, you know that I'm an Enneagram 8. We are the misunderstood children of the group, and it really, once you understand who you are in the Enneagram world, it brings so much clarity to how you show up in the world. And I'm just excited to talk to this lady because she is literally an expert. And Beth McCord, will you please introduce to us who you are and tell our audience a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm Beth McCord. My husband and I have been married 29 years. We have 2 adult kids and 1 new grandbaby, as you and I were talking, sharing
Woohoo!
stories. We're both grandmothers now. And we live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. We've been here for about 10 years. Love Nashville. Um, yeah, and I have written my 12th book is coming out this summer, The Enneagram for
Wow.
Moms.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're really excited. And it's the book I wished I had when I was a younger mom, but not just that, it's really a book for moms of all ages and
That's
all
great.
stages of life, because it's really a book about relationships and the relationships we're most, dear and fond of, that we want to create great connection with. So yeah, that's the next one that's coming out, and we're really excited just to get it in all the hands of the moms so they can have the clarity that they want to not only just improve their relationships, but their own personal life. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what we're up to right now.
Hallelujah. I can attest to wanting something like this tool when I was a young mom but now looking forward to reading it as a mom of adult children
Yep.
and grandchildren, and knowing that it's going to enrich all of those relationships even more. So for those people who don't know, can you
Mhm.
just give us a brief overview of what is the Enneagram?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, most personality typologies out there are going to talk about what you do, like your behaviors, things that most people can see on the outside. The Enneagram is quite different. It's talking about why you think, feel, and behave.
Mm,
So, we're going to get to the core motivations of why you do what you do. This is really helpful because it's going to help us to understand why we got to where we got, whether it's in a healthy place or not so healthy place. And obviously, it's great when we know it's not so healthy because none of us want to be there. And then we get confused why we're there again.
mhm,
Why is this happening again? Didn't I learn my lesson? And you know what? We do. And this is hard. But the Enneagram brings astonishing clarity to the why we think, feel, and behave. And there are 9 basic personality types. And think of the 9 basic personality types as 9 different people, let's just say, that are wearing 9 different glasses and they have different colored lenses. We are
mm,
all experiencing the same world. Those 9 people might be experiencing the same situation, but they're going to see it, interpret it, and then react to it from their own perspective. And these are
mm,
valid perspectives. So you and I are very different Enneagram types. So you're the type 8, the passionate protector. I'm the type 9, even though we're right next to each other. I'm the type 9, and I'm the peaceful accommodator. Now, you're one of my wings and I'm one of your wings. So we do actually use characteristics from each other's type, but we're also very different. So the 9, their core fear, and I'm going to kind of run down the core motivations just between
sure.
the two of us, so then we can kind of use our types as examples. So the type 9, their core fears, there's 4 core motivations: the core fear, what you're running away from; core desire, what you're trying to obtain; the core weakness, what your Achilles heel is, basically, your thorn in the side; your core longing, the message your heart longs to hear. So for me as a type 9, the peaceful accommodator, my core fears are the fear of conflict, discord, being shut out, overlooked, and really just not being important to others. Now, my core desire is to have peace of mind and inner stability in harmony with others. My core weakness is sloth. Now, this isn't a physical laziness. This is an internal laziness, not knowing oneself because of that core fear of conflict. I am going to focus on others and learn how to accommodate and merge with others, which means I lose my own identity because I've just been merging with others to make everyone else happy, go along to get along. And then the core longing that I long to hear is your presence matters. Now, for you, it's very different. Your core fear is to be challenged, to be controlled, to be harmed, to be manipulated, and left at the mercy of injustice. Your
Mhm.
desire is to protect yourself and those in your small inner circle. But your core weakness is lust or excess. So type 8s know what they want and where they're going, and they're going to go get it one way or the other.
It's true.
and and it's like, get out of my way. And basically what you see is what you get.
Mhm.
Um, and then the core longing, the message you long to hear is you will not be betrayed.
Mm,
So and what's interesting is here I'm conflict adverse, right? You actually, as a type 8, they call it confrontational intimacy.
mm,
8s actually enjoy a spar because it's like, who am I talking with? Like, are
mhm.
you really in this? Are you someone I can like really relate to, And so they don't mind that spar because they actually know who they're dealing with. I, on the other hand, never want to experience that. And I'm trying so hard not to go there. The reason why I bring up you and I is because you and I can be in the same room together, in the same, let's say, meeting room, and experiencing it completely differently. So we're seeing the reality at hand, but the way we perceive it, interpret it, and react to it can be absolutely different. Like if there's conflict, let's say in a meeting, like I say, a work meeting that we're in, you might be like, oh yeah, let's get into it. Let's go. Let's speak truth. Let's get from
Yep.
here to the other side, like let's just lay it on the table. This is going to be excellent. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're all going to die. Let's hide under the table, everyone.
Right.
Now, both our perspectives aren't wrong or right. They are just our perspectives.
Mhm.
What we do with them is really what's going to be healthy or unhealthy. If I succumb to my fears in an unhealthy way and avoid conflict and go along to get along, that is not helpful for anyone. And in fact, that can create more conflict.
Mhm.
If I, though, am able to stay present and self regulated and know that my presence and my voice matters and that this is going to be uncomfortable for me, but I need to stay present and voice what I need to bring to the table, but also that I'm really good at mediating, helping people to see each other's viewpoints, that people don't just go off on their own and be very self-consumed. So I can bring the best of my personality to the table if I'm in a healthy place. If I'm not in a
Mhm.
healthy place, yeah, I'm going to probably hide under the table. You may not see it because I'm still sitting in the chair, but my whole personality is gone,
Yeah.
checked out, removed. Now, you, on the other hand, you might in a healthy way. So type eights, and you were absolutely right. I think eights are some of the most misunderstood on the Enneagram. Eights, usually people think of them or experience them as bulldozers,
Mhm.
but that's not what you are. You're a big diesel snowplow. So you know those big diesel snowplows in the Midwest and the North?
Yep.
If we don't have those, the highways and the roads will not get cleared off. There's too much snow at one time. You can't just have a Ford pickup truck with a shovel on the front. That's
Right.
not going to get it done. We need the big diesel snowplow. So aides at their healthiest are going to plow a path for others. They're going to be like, hey guys, I can see that there's a need here. Get behind me. I got you. When they're in kind of autopilot mode, less observant, maybe a little less compassionate, they're going to start nicking cars on the road. And everyone's going to be like, dude, why are you nicking us? And you're like, don't just see I'm coming? Like, get out of the way.
Right.
But then when that eight is unhealthy, they don't really care and they're just going to go for it. And so those are the different levels of health for an eight. So in that meeting room, you could go, hey, I have a very honest, strong personality. I can say the hard things, but I can do it in a way that understands the room and give space for everyone and not just go at it in my own way. And so you can plow a path for others, but in a way that is beneficial. Or you could literally blow up the room with your big energy, get angry, and very confrontational. And so I bring that up because I think so often people are so consumed with the outward behavior versus why are we doing that? So
Mhm.
I'm doing it because of my core fears and what I really want. You're doing it because of the same thing, your core fears and what you want. And so when we understand that, we can then understand, am I doing this thing in a healthy or unhealthy way? And the
Mm.
Enneagram maps that out, and the Enneagram helps you to know how to get back on your healthiest, best path.
Mm. That's great. That's a really great explanation. I've experienced all of that you were just saying. I am a wing nine, so I lean pretty heavily into my wing nine.
Yeah.
But I do find myself in those situations. Like my senior pastor, I work at a
Hmm.
church full time, and
Yep.
so he is also an eight, and
Okay.
we tend to call those conversations sparky. And
Uh,
we both really like them, but there are other people in the room who for sure do not like them.
right.
And so I'm super familiar with what you're talking about. And I have found as I've grown in my knowledge of my own eightness
Yep.
and my strengths and my weaknesses, I find myself leaning into that defender and really trying to encourage those who don't feel like they can be part of
Yep.
those conversations and have a voice. I really try to come alongside them as that encourager
Right.
and let them know that what they have to say matters and that we want to hear. And so I find that um I've taken on that role as I've grown. And I know
Mhm.
that one of the ways that, well, you like to say that the Enneagram is like an onion. It has a lot of layers. I always think of
Oh, yeah.
Shrek, right? Well, parfaits have layers. Well, so do onions. I think maybe parfaits when we're healthy and onions when we're not. I don't know. Anyway, I do think that a knowledge of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but having a knowledge, you shouldn't type other people, but
Yep.
having a knowledge of what the other Enneagram types are
Oh,
can really be helpful in going about not only business world, but day-to-day life, because most of us live with other human beings. For sure,
oh,
we interact
absolutely.
with other human beings. And so
Yes.
having that knowledge is super important.
Yes. So, yes to both of those. Yes, you cannot type another person. You might see their outward behavior and be like, oh my gosh, I know they're this
Mhm.
type, you know? Um, and sometimes that makes sense. But here's the thing, you really don't know another person's core motivations. You see the outward manifestation of something that is going on the inside, but you really don't know. And let me give you an
Right.
example. And I give this one just because it's super simple, it's fast. Um, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. So let's say we all walk into 9 different homes and they're all exactly the same model, same furniture, everything, but each one of them is a different Enneagram type that owns it.
Mm,
And each one of them is perfectly clean. Okay. Naturally, when we walk into that home, most people are going to go, oh, they must be a type 1 because the type 1s are perfectionists and they have to have everything just right. I mean, that makes sense why someone would think that. Another person might think, oh, they're a type 3, because it's all about image. So those are probably the 2 typical ones that people are going to land on first. Now, of course, they could think of reasons for some of the other ones too. But here's where it's different. You really don't know why a person's doing what they're doing until you know their type, because we all can do the same thing.
mhm,
So let's walk into each of these 9 homes. So the type 1, they might have a perfectly clean home because it's the right thing to do.
mm,
And so they're about morals, procedures, ethics, those kinds of things. The type 2, the type 1 is called the principal reformer. The type 2 is the nurturing supporter. And for them, it's like a big warm hug. They want everyone to feel seen and loved and cared for. The type 3 is the admirable achiever. And for them, it's all about the image and accomplishment. So if they don't have a perfectly clean home, what are you going to think of them? Will you
mm,
admire them or will they be worthless and a failure? The type 4 is the introspective individualist. Now, they might have a perfectly clean home because they want to show their uniqueness, their authentic self. So they want you to see the design, the aesthetics, the beauty of what they bring to the table, how different and special it is. The type 5 is the analytical investigator. Now, they are all about knowing things and having knowledge and not being ignorant and incompetent. So they might want to clean home so they can get to all of their resources, that nothing's hindering them from grabbing that article or whatever thing is at hand. The type 6 is the faithful guardian. Now they can think of worst case scenarios because they have an inner committee chiming in from all different directions. And so they could be thinking, and they're very dutiful and loyal. So they might be like, this is what's dutiful, this is what's faithful and loyal by keeping things clean and tidy. But they might also be thinking, well, if I don't wipe this up with, antibacterial wipe, someone could get sick,
mm,
or leaving that thing on the floor, someone could trip over. So that might be a reason for a type 6 to have a perfectly clean home.
mm,
Now, the type 7s are the inner enthusiastic optimists, sorry. And they might be, and they're usually like always ready for the next best thing.
yes.
So they would probably want a perfectly clean home because they don't want the home to keep them from that next exciting thing. Now, the type 8, well, we'll see if this is true for you. The type 8 might want a perfectly clean home because that home is not going to control them. They're going to control the home. And then the type 9, I want perfectly clean home because I just want to chill and relax. I don't want those dishes telling me that I've got to get up and do something. If everything is in its place and everything's clean, guess what? I can chill and relax without everything tapping me on the shoulder, telling me I'm missing out and not doing something right. So, do you see how it's not about the behavior? The behavior can be the same for all 9
Mm,
types, but why we do it is the big thing. So we can't walk into a person's home and go, oh, I know who they are. We have to
Mm.
ask curious questions and let them discover their type.
Yeah, I
And
love
oh,
that.
to the other point, absolutely. Here's a great thing. When I was first starting the Enneagram, way back like 20 some years ago, I was at such a less healthy place. I probably wouldn't say unhealthy because unhealthy is a whole nother category, but I was in a less healthy place that reading a type 8's description made me tremble
Oh.
because I didn't understand the heart of an 8.
Mm-hmm.
I only saw it through my own lens and I couldn't understand them. But I absolutely adore 8s now because I know they're some of the most tender on the Enneagram. And they are really the champions of others. They know what seat everyone should go in. They just have a gut instinct of where people are strong and they're willing to put them there. They're willing to do the hard things because they have such big hearts. Now, they can come across in an opposite way. And so
Mm-hmm.
people misunderstand that. But if you get to know an 8, it's like, you know what? I know you're not intending for it to come across so mean and harsh.
Right.
Can you let me know what's actually going on? And then the 8's like, oh yeah, no, it was actually from this place. And it's like, oh, okay, I totally thought so because I know your heart is so tender and so big. Now, of course, if an 8 is unhealthy, that's a whole different ball game.
Sure.
And same with all the 9 types. But we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about your average 8 to healthy 8. And so I've had several 8s on my team and I absolutely love them because I'm like, yes, I mean, just champion me, like plow the path for me. I know your heart's big. I know you've got me. Let's go do this. And so that's where understanding the other type, you don't have to memorize everything, but
Mm-hmm.
that allows me to be comfortable with you because I know what you're generally about instead of having preconceptions that are wrong.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. So I want to shift the conversation and talk specifically to your book
Yeah.
that's getting ready to come out.
Mhm.
All of the information for pre-ordering. So this episode will come out right before the book launches.
Okay.
So you guys get your pre-order in
I know.
because there's
Yes.
bonuses. There's
Absolutely.
bonuses. So all those will be in the show notes. But before we launch into speaking specifically to parents, talk about because not everybody who listens to this is going to be a parent, but everything that you say
Mhm.
still matters to them. So
Yeah.
speak to that for just a second before we launch in.
Yeah. So pretty much everything we do with the Enneagram has to do with relationships, whether it's relationship with yourself or relationship with others. Now, so we could talk about relationship with your kiddos. We could talk about relationship with coworkers, your spouse, your boyfriend, your in-laws, you name it. This applies to those relationships.
Mhm.
But what you're going to find in this book in particular, which is pretty much the same in all of our books, you have to do your own work first. You have to understand your own developmental story and why you get tripped up the way you do, and then learn how to self regulate, how to work through those things in order to have the relationship you desire, whether it's with your kids, your parents, your coworkers, it doesn't matter who it is. You have to start with yourself. Now, that's really easy to say and it's really hard to do because
Right.
most of the time, like when we grow up, I mean, even in our 20s, at least into our 20s, if not later, we're like, if so and so would stop doing that, I would be fine, or I wouldn't get upset, or I wouldn't feel sad, or I wouldn't whatever. We're always focusing on other people changing when really it has so much more to do with ourselves.
Mm.
We can learn to be okay and fine in lots of situations. I'm not saying all situations because there is a lot of trauma that goes on out there, and that's a whole different level. So I'm not speaking to that level, but I'm speaking really to the people that are like me, very codependent. I
Mm.
grew up always thinking, well, if all these other people would just be nice and peaceable like me, my feelings wouldn't get hurt. Now, some of that's kind of true, but can I live life even if someone says something or does something that comes across as harsh and mean? Can I be okay with myself? Can I
Mm.
take care of myself even in the midst of that? The answer
Mhm.
is yes.
Mm.
the question is, am I at a place that I can do that for myself or not? So
Right.
with our kids, our younger kids, we can't know their type. Just like what I said earlier, you don't know their motivations. And I know parents are going to be like, yes, but you don't know this. My kid is an 8. My husband thought he was an 8 for 5 years when we first started using the Enneagram because my mom is a 6. And he was like, there is no way I am like your mom. And it's true. They are so different on an outward behavioral
Mhm.
stance, but their core motivations are exactly the same. They're both 6s. Now, 6s have a wide range of a spectrum. So you've got the phobic 6s that succumb to their fears and anxieties. And then you go to the other side and they're like, fear is not going to get a hold of me. I'm going to move into the
Mm.
fear. But they still have the same fears and anxieties. And 8 is like, fear, what? No, let's just go. Like, we'll figure it out as we go. And so I'm saying that in regards also with our kids could appear one way, and then in a couple seasons, it's all different, and then a couple
Sure.
seasons, like a teenage girl. Well, a lot of teenage girls are gonna look like type 4s, very emotional because we're in that phase of life. So we
Mhm.
want to just be careful. But even if we don't know our kids because they're really little, or they are not interested. Your kids might be grown adults and they're not interested.
Sure.
It doesn't negate the fact that we can have a better relationship with them because we've taken care of ourselves.
Mhm.
We're more mindful of how we're reacting. We're becoming more, or we're becoming more actors than reactors to life.
Mm.
And that can really change the course of all relationships. Now, yes, it is so much more beneficial if both people are on the same page and they know their Enneagram types and they can say, you know what, that feels really harsh. Like let's say if we were in a meeting, that really feels harsh. And that really kind of just lands on me like, maybe you're upset with me. Is that true? I mean, as an 8, maybe you're just kind of saying it like you feel it and you have no intentions of that, like harming or hurting me or making me feel scared. So can you kind of clarify that? And you might be like, oh my gosh, yeah, totally. No, I was just kind of saying it. Like, okay, that's probably what I thought. So you and I could have that conversation. But even if I didn't know you really well, what I do know is that most likely you're wearing a different lens than I am. You have a different perspective, a different way of handling situations, whether right or wrong. And I can be curious versus making wrong assumptions. And we call that a suicide because we're assuming incorrectly
I love
other
that.
people's other people's thoughts, feelings, and motives, and we're assigning it as bad or wrong, and it's
Mhm.
hurting and harming our relationships.
Right.
Versus, let's be curious. Let's ask curious questions before we put judgments on another person
Mm.
and get our relationship steered in a bad direction. So, no matter whether you know someone's type or you don't, the Enneagram can help your relationships because it starts with you first.
Mm. So good. I love the curiosity factor of that. I wish that we were all more curious. I think
Yeah.
we have a tendency to be self-forward and
Mhm.
forget that being curious about other people and why they do what they do can really be so beneficial in so many ways. I was listening to the podcast where you and your husband were talking about the book, the new book the other day, and he said something about relationship and having relationship versus trying to control. And
Mm.
man, that landed for me so, so hard because so many times, especially in parenting, we're
Mhm.
trying to control behavior and
Yes.
forget about the relationship.
Yes.
And I would love to have you talk to that for just a minute,
Mhm.
relationship versus control in regards to parenting
Yeah.
specifically.
So yeah, what we were and this is in the book, and it's really talking about uh, relationship connection. So having
Mhm.
connection versus behavioral control.
Mhm.
Now, let me just say up front, this isn't talking about getting rid of discipline when discipline is
Sure.
needed, or correction, or teaching, or guiding, whatever term you want to call it. We're not, that is true in and of itself.
Mhm.
But like you said, often we're just trying to get our kids to do certain things. And most of
Right.
the time, if we're honest and we don't know this like right off the bat, we're actually trying to make them little versions of ourselves.
Mm.
Because that's the world we've always swam in. That's what
Mhm.
we know. That's what we think is the right way. Now, it doesn't mean that that's wrong or right, but I want to make little versions of a peaceful accommodator. I think my kids should be empathetic and compassionate and kind and thoughtful and merging with others. Well, some of that's good and some of that's not good. But
Right.
I grew up, that's just the way it was. And so I might, if my kids, let's say, got too loud or argumentative or not listening, I might want to control that because from my perspective, that is all wrong and bad, no matter what.
Mm.
Well, you would probably have a totally different view on that. Like, what? No, like I want them to stand up for themselves. I want them to say their truth. I value that. So you and I might come from a completely different standpoint. Your kids might be like, "Yeah, I should speak up. My mom taught me to speak up for myself." And then my kids are like, "What? No. Like we're supposed to go along to get along." And so the reason why I say that is we have to be mindful that our kids are not us,
Mhm.
that our kids are their own personalities, their own story. It's very complicated because parenting is complicated, but we want to remain curious even about our kiddos as we parent. Meaning, if I have a type 8 daughter, she is going to be combative. She's going to say her truth. She's going to be argumentative and she's going to enjoy it. That sounds like the worst situation for me ever. But I'm a mom. And so God wants me to love and nurture my child in the way they should go. And it's talking about their bent. So if I am able to recognize, okay, a type 8 girl is going to be strong, combative. She's going to stand up for herself. It's going to look like disobeying. It's going to look like disrespect. Now, what as a parent, what I need to do is investigate, be curious, ask good questions, nurture, guide. But if I were to find out, oh, she was intending to really stand up for herself and speak her mind, but she
Mhm.
wasn't intending to be disrespectful, then I can have that kind of conversation with her. Like I could say, you know what, I'm so proud of you because someday you're going to be in a meeting with maybe some executives and they're doing something that's really wrong and you need to speak up and say your piece. I am so proud that you have that ability. So I
Mm.
can champion her. And at the same time, I can say, but with mom, that is not the best way to go at it right now. Another way you can go at it is in the future, I would appreciate if you said, hey, mom, I have a different viewpoint. I would like to share with you what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. Is that okay? Now, that's lofty, right? Is our kids ever going to get to that place? They might if they've been brought up that way, but I'm just showing a framework of how I can mirror to my daughter, who's a type 8. Well, my daughter's not a type 8, but if my daughter was a type 8, what it could look like for her to remain an 8, to have that quality that is so needed and God put in her, but to do it in this circumstance in a different way that is beneficial for her and me. And so
Mm.
that's where we don't want it to just be about behavioral control, because I'm going to basically control her to become a 9
Mm.
versus helping, like establishing that connection, that trust where I can see her for who she is the best that I can at the age she's at, whether I know she's an 8 or not, and help her on her way with tools and resources that fit her better than like the type 1 child or the type 7 child. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. About 3 years ago, largely with the help of the Enneagram, I had this awakening of sorts to the fact that people for most of my life had been trying to control
Yep.
the 8 behaviors out of me.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel good. And so to
Mm-mm.
think that as a parent, I may have been doing that to my child and really kind of thwarting who God created them to be in the
Mm-hmm.
fullness and being able to live in that healthy space of the fullness of who God created them to be. It just breaks my heart. And I mean, any parent, right? We
Yeah.
we want our children to live into being everything that they were designed to be by their creator. And so it makes absolute complete sense.
And it's really hard. And
Yes.
the reason, and I put this example in the book, but I want parents out there to realize how hard this is, because talking about it on a podcast can seem real simple and easy,
Yeah.
but there's literally, I wrote the book that moms need, not the book they want. What
Mm,
we want is a manual. Tell
right.
me how to parent this child versus this child. I can't do that for you. I can help you to know yourself better. I can give you some ideas of, once you know your kid's type, I can definitely help there. But I need moms to understand themselves and understand what's going on with their kids. So what I show in the book is that, when you go to a paint store and let's say you get green. And my daughter wanted a green color for her room back in the day. We saw a picture of it the other day. It's like Kermit the Frog green. And I, bless my nine heart, went along with it. And um, but what's interesting is you bring the base paint, right? It's white. They open the lid, there's that white paint, and then they put it under the color coding machine. And all of a sudden, if you watch, there's a bunch of different colors that go into the can. It's not just green, it's not the color green, it's the right colors to mix together. But what's
Mm,
fascinating is that after it's done and right before they put the lid on, if you look at it, it looks like the same white paint. It's not
mhm,
mixed, it's all the colors have gone to the bottom. That is what it's like when we are given our children, when they're
mm,
younger. We don't know the personality God has put within them. As they grow, it's starting to get shook up or stirred. And some of the colors are starting to come together, but all of a sudden you see a little bit of yellow and then a little bit of blue over here and a little bit of silver. It's like, who is this person? And that's because they're learning from their coaches and their friends and the friends' parents and all of these things. It doesn't mean that their personality isn't there, but they're
mm,
learning, they're growing. And here's where it really comes in. When they become teenagers, the parents are like, what is going on? You've never been like this before. I didn't raise you to be like this. Well, their personality is finally really mixing together. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to be me.
mm,
And it's really going to show forth, and the parents don't know what to do with it. But that's when we get to be curious. That's when we get to
mm,
learn from them and help them to explore themselves. And then when we understand more of who they are, that's when we get to champion them, whether our
mm.
kid is a 7, an 8, a 4, a 2, whatever. Um, and really be excited for that personality to emerge. Now, I know it feels like the opposite. But wouldn't you have loved in those years for someone to go, I see you and I love that you're so strong and you will voice your opinion, but can I help you in kind of navigating what that might look like so that it actually
Yes,
benefits you better? Wouldn't you have felt
absolutely.
protected?
Yes.
Right. And so it's just a whole different ball game. So if we just recognize it's going to be really hard for us parents, because that can of paint won't fully mix until or for them to know themselves and name themselves. It's not going to happen until they're older. And we
Mm,
can't guess what that color is at the bottom until it fully emerges and they say it. But we can remain curious and
yeah.
ask good questions and see and do the best we can. So it's just really hard to be a parent, but it's also good. I mean, and God created it that way. We
Yeah.
have to depend on him all the time.
Yeah. And the more we know about ourselves and how we can deal with those situations, the better it's going to be. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and yes. I didn't do it always right. No parent's going to do it always
No.
right, but all you can do is your best.
Yeah.
So in the book, you talk about the awaken framework,
Yeah.
and it's awakening your thoughts and feelings and body sensations and inclinations. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that and how people listening can actually use that effectively?
Yes, absolutely. So the awaken really comes from the acronym AWARE. And so uh, AWARE stands for, the first letter is awaken. So we're going to touch on that. And then welcome, ask, receive, and engage. So we need moms to awaken to their thoughts, feelings, and inclinations, their body sensations, their all of those emotions. There's lots of things that are going on. And what I mean by that is when I'm activated. So if I tell my kids to do something and they don't do it, my type 9 heart feels like, see, my presence doesn't matter. They don't care about me. I'm not important. I shouldn't say anything. And I'm assuming that that's what they're thinking. And my body feels it, my thoughts feel it, my feelings feel it. Um, and it can totally derail me because it's not necessarily what is accurate and true. It's
Right.
that is the false messages that the type 9 believes.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to awaken, and we talk about this a lot at your Enneagram coach. Think of the Enneagram like a rumble strip on the highway.
Mm.
You're going to be driving down, you're going to be doing pretty good, and then something's going to activate you, and you're going to start to veer off into a less healthy path. And you can either go off into the ditch and crash again. And that's when we all go, what? How did I get here again? Or you can use the Enneagram, and it's like putting down those rumble strips so that when you start to veer off, you can hear that rumble. So when my mind starts to say, see, I know I don't matter. I know they don't listen to me. And all those thoughts, that's when I go, oopsies, that's the rumble strip. Like, I know I need to investigate. I need to be curious because that is my narrative. That's not necessarily everyone else's narrative about me.
Right.
And so if I'm able to do that, then I can kind of steer the ship. So that's where we need to be awakened to what is happening inside us. The second, though, I will say is almost as important as the awaken, and it's welcome. So once you're awakened to that you're doing this, please do not shame and guilt yourself or condemn yourself. So welcome is welcome without shame, guilt, and self-condemnation. That's super hard. I know we've been brought up to do it the opposite way. Our flesh just does it that way. But what it happens is, so you're driving down the road and you're starting to veer off course. You hit that rumble strip. Oh, good. You're awakened. That's wonderful. Usually what happens next is you take that steering wheel and you pull it hard to the right and you veer off into the ditch quicker because we're shaming ourselves. We're guilting ourselves. We're putting judgment and all the things. And that only just creates the situation to be worse. So we want everyone to realize you're okay. You were created to be the best version of your personality type. And we are, at least my belief is, God has brought us in fullness to who we need to be, and he's still continuing to bring us there. So if I know that he's got me, then when I'm hitting that rumble strip and not doing well, I don't have to freak out with self-condemnation and shame and judgment. I can sit back and go, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity that I have to self-regulate, to understand what's going on, and take that steering wheel and not turn it hard to the left either.
Right.
Just like we do on the highway. Okay, I'm going to gently bring myself back into the healthiest path. And that's going to look different for all 9 types. But what gets us self-regulated? What is self-care for us? That will also model for our kids emotional intelligence, but also body intelligence. Like, what does our bodies need? There's so many things that can happen there. But if we just gently bring ourselves back in, it's so much more beneficial for us in the long run. So that's just the awaken and the welcome. Of course, ask for truth, receive the truth, and then engage in a new way is the last 3.
Yeah, it's so rich, so rich. I think that you said something in the welcome piece about the shame piece, and I know that in this podcast we talk about um, self-labels, self-deprecation, shaming, imposter syndrome, negative self-talk. We talk about that a lot because
Yeah.
I feel like it's this broken record in the mind
Yep.
of most
It is.
women. And it's so counterproductive. And there's a story that you actually have in the beginning of your book about a day that you took your kids to the park and what happened there. Can you share that?
Yeah. So this was back in 2001-ish time frame. So my daughter was about 1, my son was about 3. We lived on a seminary campus, and there was the playground, like right smack dab in the middle of all of these apartment buildings. So thus moms would take our kids out there, and it was fun. It was great. But I also would see all the other moms and how amazing they were. Like some were creative, some were strong, some were uh, gentle, all the different things. And I'm sitting there going, oh man, I wish I was like her. Oh man, that mom over there, I wish I was. And then I'm just looking around going, I am the worst,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because I know myself. I know well, probably all of me. If not, I know probably more of the less desirable parts of me than I do my desirable parts. We kind of forget about those, like,
Yeah,
oh
right.
man. And we just look at the negative parts. And so I go home and I'm like feeling like the worst mom ever. And I was telling my husband about it. And he's like, Beth, you literally just created a mythical figure. Like you've put
Mm.
all of these wonderful attributes of these other moms, which by the way, Beth, they're putting on their best in front of everyone. You don't know what they're dealing with behind the closed doors, but let's just take the fact that they have these wonderful qualities and you're making one big super mom that
Mhm.
doesn't exist. And I was like, that's right. And that's what we do with social media, with
Yeah.
magazines. We do that with TV, our
Yeah.
friends, you name it. We're making this one big monster woman, even though
Yeah.
she's beautiful and she's got the best characteristics and all these things. She doesn't exist. And what happens is we're comparing. And a counselor back in the day taught me that when you're comparing, you're either putting someone else up on a pedestal, but you're literally putting them up and far away, or you're putting them down, you're judging them and putting them down and far away. Either way, you're pushing people out of your life.
Mm.
And that's why we feel alone.
Mm.
And so, whereas, what if we just recognize we are all struggling? Like,
Mhm.
just take the masks off of everyone, whether they do it or not. Realize they're all struggling. They all are looking for people to understand them, to validate them, to attune to them, to love them right where they're at. That's everyone. And
Yeah.
if we can do that, then we can also start doing that for ourselves. So
Mm.
that's when I kind of just, and not, I'm still working on it. I'll be forever working on it, because
Right.
that's the human nature, is to go in that direction. So I have to counter it the best that I can
Mhm.
and as often as I can. So it's not a one and done deal, just because we have this aha moment doesn't mean it just, but it was really important to go, okay, so who was I created to be? I
Mm.
might not be the fun mom, like the type 7 moms. I might not be the deep authentic mom like the 4s, but who did God create me to be? He created
Mm.
me to be a type 9 mom for my 2 kiddos with their types. And so, how can I bring the best of who I am to them? Not trying to
Mm.
make them into a type 9, but I
Mhm.
can give them some really great qualities that the type 9 has. And be not just okay with that, but really relish in that, because God doesn't make mistakes in how he created me for my kiddos.
Yes. I was thinking just that, that he put your 2 kids and their makeup in your home specifically with you for a specific reason, and it just is so beautiful, and I think relishing that curiosity about why and exploring all of that and how it just is gonna paint the most beautiful picture of the way that God designed your family
Mhm.
as, as a mom, if you can come into it with that mindset, wow,
Yeah.
how things would change. I
Yeah.
wish I wish I'd known that,
Yeah.
about
But
20
now
years
you
ago.
do
Now I
with your
do.
grandkids. And
Right.
so now it really it is perfect for any stage of motherhood. It's perfect for any stage of any relationship. If you're
Mm.
starting a new job today, you can start using this right away. If you've been in the same career for 40 years, you can start using this right away. Like, it is that beneficial if you actually apply it first to yourself, and then also then use it to be aware of others. Just don't use it to try to control others. We cannot change other people. We can only start with ourselves.
Mm, so good, so good. Well, I could literally go on all day, but we will not because it would spoil the book. And Beth also has a podcast that I am an avid listener of. It's so
Oh,
good.
thanks.
She's actually in a series right now. Well, at the time that this comes out, you'll have to go back a little bit, but she's going through each type mom, and it's been so good to listen to
Mm,
all of those. And so we're going to list all of those things in the show notes, but tell people where would you send them to
mhm.
connect with you and all the things?
Yeah. So everything is at yourenneagramcoach.com. And that's our handles on social, Your Enneagram Coach. The podcast is Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. Now, if you just want a shortcut to the book so that you can order it and get your pre-order bonuses, it's enneagramformoms.com. And that's the book, the Enneagram
Perfect.
for Moms. So it's just, I'm sorry, the website is enneagramformoms.com. And so just go there, grab your book. We put a bunch of clicks to go to whatever retailer fits you best. And then the pre-order bonuses are there as well. So go grab all that you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. I know that I've benefited so much from following you on social and on your podcast. And I cannot wait to get this book when it comes out. I'm going to go pre-order right now, and everybody else should do the same. So thank you so much. It has been a pleasure interviewing you today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.